Hello everybody, Pentacred here, and today I'm gonna show you how to add an outline to a mob. So you will see here, we have a sniffer with a glowing outline, and it's also color cyan. And you can change the color of this to anything you want. It's pretty cool. So, let's get on to the video. So first of all, you need your setup to be like this. Don't worry about the path. You can put it in resource packs, and here's also the resource pack name folder. You got the pack icon. Let's just edit this. Let's I don't know, smiley face, I guess, to distinguish it from my other packs. So you got pack icon, the manifest JSON. This will be, standard with all the resource packs. You also got the entity folder, materials folder, and this is the entity.material, which should contain this. So this is going to be the entity outline, which will be coming from entity alpha test. But if you want, you can also choose I don't know, that's the wrong spell. You can also use entity alpha blend, but I'm gonna use alpha test for this one. And it also has the states plus states invert culling, and also minus defines fancy. You will need this. So now let's find our entity that we're gonna add the outline to. I'm personally gonna choose the sniffer because it's one of the easy ones. So you're just gonna go to entity, find the sniffer. I think I overshoot. Sniffer, right here. Sniffer.entity.json. And we're in the resource pack, the entity folder. We're gonna copy that, put it right here in the entity. And then we also need the sniffer's models. So we're gonna go to the models, entity, we find the sniffer right here, sniffer and snifflet if you want. We're gonna copy both of those, paste them in models, entity, right here. And I would suggest you rename them so that you don't get confused. And also, while we're at it, we're gonna change them. Geometry, sniffer, outline. And this snifflet, sniffer baby, let's just add outline at the end. So now sniffer outline, geometry sniffer outline, snifflet outline, geometry sniffer baby outline. Right. So that's the original name with the outline at the end. Right. Then we also want to put the render controllers inside. We're gonna find again the sniffer, always choose the V2 because this one's the old one. You can see like the other mobs also have V2s. That's like their revamped version. So we're gonna copy the V2, paste it here. And I guess you can just add an outline as well so you don't get confused. And then we're gonna change the render controllers. Controller render sniffer v2. Let's add outline at the end. Outline. We're gonna do geometry dot baby. We're gonna add baby outline, and then on the default we're gonna add default outline. That's it. So now we go back to the entity now that we've completed everything here. And now we're gonna add a new material. So there's the default sniffer. We're gonna do default outline, and then the outline will be here, the entity outline. So you can just go and put that here. So the default outline will be this, okay? That's the default, the entity outline. See that? And it's gonna be called default outline for the render controller to use. On the texture, we can also go put outline, and the textures is gonna be its location, so that it's in textures, and then white.png, or I'm not gonna add png, it's not needed, but yeah, it's just textures / white. It's right there. Now ignore the scripts, we're gonna move to geometry, and then we're gonna take the names of these models. So geometry sniffer outline and geometry sniffer baby outline. So I'm just gonna copy them. Let's call this default outline, and also geometry sniffer baby outline. So we're gonna, let's just say this is called baby outline. So now, because I'm using an extension, you can see it's already linked. So yeah, and also yeah, so it works now. Next, we're gonna ignore animations, and you can see there's the animation controllers, which it breaks the entities. So what we're gonna do is close them for now, and maybe we're gonna add to the scripts to fix them. Make the version 1.10.0 as well to allow it. Looks like it doesn't allow it. Okay, so now we need to put these in the animations. I'm just gonna do this. And then fixing it. And remove the entire animation controllers. And then now in the animate, there we go. So we're gonna animate all of these render controllers, and the baby transform, we're just gonna comment it because we don't need it anymore. The baby transform is from an old code that we don't need. So we're gonna ignore the sound effects, ignore spawn egg, and now we're gonna go to the render controllers, and we're gonna type in the name of the render controllers: controller render sniffer v2 outline. And now it's linked. So now if you go to the geometry, there is this thing called baby outline, that's the name. And geometry default outline, this will be the default outline right here. So let's check the materials. Material.default, it's using the default, but we need to use the outline for this. So we're gonna copy default outline right there. Textures, if it's baby, texture baby. If not, texture default. You can simplify this by just using outline. So we don't need this condition that checks if it's baby or not. Or if you want to preserve it, you can just, but I'm not gonna preserve it for now. So you can do this, but you can also do this if you want to simplify, but I'm gonna do this for now. Right, so we have baby outline, default outline, and outline. That is all correct. Now, we need to modify these models. So you open Blockbench. You take these models and you put them in Blockbench. So this is the model for the sniffer and the snifflet. What you're gonna do is select all of them, all of the geometries, and then inflate it by whatever you choose. Just anything that's bigger than the original. So I'm gonna inflate it by 0.5, let's say. So there we go. By the way, do not change the value of the inflate to just like type in 1. It's gonna change stuff, and we don't want that. And then save. Same for the snifflet, I mean. Select all, and then 1, 2. That's resizing by 0.5, and then save. And now these should have changed. So I'm gonna open Minecraft. We're just gonna create a new world, test it right here. You can check it in other worlds you want. I don't know. So I found it. It's the hack icon with a smiley face. So I'm gonna activate it. And let's just check it as by itself for now. So I'm just gonna set up some basic stuff here that you don't need. I don't know, tutorial, I guess. And then we're gonna create. And we're gonna see if it works or not. Alright, so the world has loaded. So now we're gonna try and spawn a sniffer. So let's see if this works. Oh, and it does not work. So how can we fix this? So here in our entity material, or our original file, you can see that the entity noCall uses the states disable calling. So what we're gonna do now, because our entity material uses entity alpha test, we need to remove the disable calling. So what we're gonna do now is copy this and then add this and then minus states instead. We're basically telling it remove the disable calling and then add invert calling. So now that should work. Alright, so we are back in the game now. So we're gonna try to spawn a sniffer. And you can see that it works. We've disabled the disable calling, or we made it call again. And then we inverted the calling. So now it works like this. So here's the sniffer, but if you do time set midnight, it does not glow. If you want it to stay like that, then I guess the tutorial's over. But personally, I think making it glow would be cool. So that's what we're gonna add next. So go back to your controller render sniffer v2 outline, and we're gonna add something. Ignore lighting. Why is it not working? True. And then that should remove the lighting from this sniffer. And then maybe you also want different colors. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna add overlay color. There. This is what you need. overlay color, red, green, blue, and alpha. And then we're gonna copy that 3 times over. And then is hurt color and also on fire color. So this first one will be the overlay color. It will determine that what color the whole texture will be, no matter what the pixels are. The is hurt color will be what its color will be when you hurt it. And on fire, this will be the colors. So they're all gonna be the same. So let's change them now to cyan, because maybe it's cool. And we're gonna reload. This time it's gonna work because we did not modify the materials, so it's gonna work just fine. And there we go. The sniffer works really well, and if you punch it, it does not change color. And if you burn it, it also does not change color. Anyways, you might be okay with this. You know, there's like some parts of it that are like weird, but maybe you want an outline that's actually just an outline around the sniffer. So here's what you gotta do. We gotta modify the material. We're gonna add stuff to the material. So we're gonna copy this entity outline base, entity alpha test, enable stencil test, stencil right. On the front face, there's stencil function, which is always stencil depth fill up, replace, stencil pass up, replace. In the back face, it's the same thing as the front face, and then a stencil ref of a value of 2 at the end. And then the second new material will be entity outline proper, entity outline. And the states will be enable stencil test, disable depth right. There's the depth function will be less equal. Front face will have a stencil func of not equal. Back face will have a stencil function of equal. And then there's the stencil reference is 2. Stencil read mask also 2. So we're gonna paste it right here alongside the entity outline. And this entity outline proper will be reading, or will be basing off of entity outline, which is right here. Or you can just merge them if you want. But personally, I'm just gonna keep it as a separate one because I want to. And you know, for this tutorial to be easy. And then entity outline base will be replacing the value of the default. So we're gonna go from sniffer to entity outline base. That's gonna be the default material. Next, entity outline proper. We're gonna replace the entity outline with entity outline proper. So you may be asking where I got all this code, and I got it from Big Gamers For You. So credits to him for providing this code. I asked him for permission and he said yes, that I can use this. And it's really complicated. I've done research on this about stencil function doing stuff, and enable stencil test and stencil right, enabling you to modify the stuff here. The stencil depth fill operation, like replace and then the pass replace. It's like testing the depth of stuff on the faces. If it's back or in front, it's gonna replace the buffer or whatever. I don't know. It's complicated, okay? So you don't need all of that. You just need to copy paste this. So since we've modified the entity.material again, we need to restart Minecraft. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna close Minecraft and then I'm gonna reopen it. And now we place down a sniffer and you will see that magically all the lines that are like right here, they are all gone. Look how better it is. Look at that. But it does not go through walls. For that, you're by yourself, or you know, you can check my add-on that I haven't released yet, but I will release a beta version of it later, or maybe tomorrow, I don't know. So you can see, does not go through walls like the add-on I'm making currently, the spectral arrow add-on, but it works. The outline works, and it's color cyan, and it's really cool. Times that day again because the dark is too much. Look at that. It's pretty cool. But you may be wondering, what if I want my sniffer to like have herbs and stuff, and you know, maybe look a bit more better depending on the situation? So here's what you can do. You're gonna go to the render controllers, and we're gonna go texture default, or basically we're just gonna copy what we had originally. So here is the original sniffer render controller, and you can see in the textures it's asking if it's a baby, use the texture baby. If it's texture default, use the texture default. We can replace this. We copy the textures and replace this old one. So it's gonna use the texture baby or texture default now, which does exist. Here's the default, here's the baby. So now if we reload Minecraft, the sniffer should render a bit better, I guess, depending on the situation really, because some mobs do not render properly. Like for example, the alley does not render nicely with that, and you have to modify more stuff in the geometry for it to work. So you can see now that it's like, it looks a bit better. So let's lead the sniffer on the top, and let's lead it on a fence. You will see that the texture is like, the outline is really putting outline on the texture. Look at that. See? It looks a bit better now. Alright, so that's all of the tutorial. If it doesn't work, please comment below. I'm gonna help you. And if it still doesn't work, even if I tried helping you in the comments, you can go and download this texture pack that I will put in the description, so you can copy it or reference it. So that is all this tutorial. Thank you for watching, have a great time, and goodbye.